On Talking with Dr. Donna, we focus on 4 pillars of health to help build a generational health network to end the cycle of premature death in the Black community. I created Talking with Dr. Donna as a way to educate as many people as possible and give accurate information from a trusted physician. Go to Talking with Dr. Donna and get accurate information. And then share that information with your family and friends. And if you like what you see, like my channel and subscribe. Remember, every Thursday, keep your appointment with Dr. Donna. Hey, good evening. Welcome to Talking with Dr. Donna. Thank you so much for keeping your appointment tonight. We have a great show for you, great guest, Dr. Kim Rhodes, who is absolutely probably the smartest person that I know. So we want to definitely make sure that you tune in and hear from Dr. Rhodes tonight about what we're talking about. If this is your first time keeping your appointment with Dr. Donna, thank you so much for keeping your appointment tonight. You have an appointment with the doctor every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Our goal here on Talking with Dr. Donna is to build a generational health network. And that means that we are focusing on 4 pillars of health. And with those 4 pillars of health, we're going to help to end the cycle of premature death in the Black communities here in America and across the diaspora. Well, you might be saying to yourself, well, what exactly are those 4 pillars of health, Dr. Donna? I'm so glad you asked because I want you to know so much more about generational health. So watch this video to learn a little bit more about the generational health network that we're building. There are 4 pillars to generational health. The first is emotional and mental health. So we talk about the connection between the mind, the body, it's all connected. The second pillar is spiritual health. That is also talking about the connection of the spirit to our bodies, how we feel, and understanding that there is a higher power. And studies show if you believe that there is a higher power, whatever you call that higher power, this is not about religion. It's about the connection to the spirit within each and every one of us. The third pillar is physical health. The fourth pillar is environmental health, and that really focuses in on the importance of our air, the soil, the places where we live, and how that impacts our health. Those are the 4 pillars of generational health, and I'm building a network of organizations and people to help build up each of those pillars, and that end the cycle of premature death in the Black community. No one talks about generational health, the impact that health decisions are made as a child, how in this generation then impacts the next generation. Diabetes passed from mom to child to their child, high blood pressure, cancer. I mean, all of these diseases are generational. I can get them, right? Because all of our genes are either turned on to create disease or turned off. And if I make a change in my dietary habits in particular, because that's probably the biggest place, generational health is important that we start with our children because they have the ability to turn that off so that the next successive generations can be on a path of wellness. Then they can make a change for the next 4 generations. All right, so now you know what we're doing here on Talking with Dr. Donna. Our goal is to build a generational health network that you can be a part of. Every time you keep your appointment with Dr. Donna, you are becoming a part of the generational health network. On the show, I just have 2 asks. The first ask is that if you have not already done so, to go over to my YouTube channel and subscribe. That's my first ask, that you subscribe, that you follow me on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, and that you subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's my first ask. My second ask is that you amplify the message. So tonight, whatever you learn, because you're going to learn a lot, but everything that you learn tonight, I want you to not keep it to yourself, but to share this knowledge and this information. So amplify the message. Let people know what you learn so that we can, again, end this cycle of premature death in the Black community. That's our goal here on Talking with Dr. Donna. So tonight we're talking about breast cancer. As you know, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And tonight I'm wearing a shirt made by Annette Massey. Thank you, Annette. It says that it's personal because breast cancer is personal for me. I have a significant family history, unfortunately, of breast cancer in my family. And so Breast Cancer Awareness Month is really important. It's near and dear to my heart. And it's really important because it is the first leading cause of cancer death for Black women. So when we look at breast cancer and why it's personal for me, I'm going to show you a picture of my family. So I have my mom, and she has 3 sisters in this picture with her. And all 3 of the sisters have had breast cancer. So my first aunt, Darlene, was diagnosed, and when she was diagnosed, it was already stage 4. This was in the 80s. There was really nothing that they could do, and she died shortly after her diagnosis. My Aunt Leona in the red shirt is a 2-time breast cancer survivor. She had breast cancer in one breast, went through treatment. About 5 years later, it recurred in the opposite breast, had treatment again. Now she's in her late 80s, doing well, survived both bouts of cancer. My mom, who's in the picture with the paisley dress, and that's me, little Dr. Donna, and my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 75. She found the breast lump and herself by doing a self-breast exam. And she was diagnosed, and unfortunately, which is why I'm so excited to have Dr. Rhodes here today, because unfortunately she was misdiagnosed. The type of breast cancer that she had was misdiagnosed, and therefore our treatment plan that we took to treat her cancer was incorrect. And 2 years after what we thought was the end of her cancer treatment, we recognized that her cancer had spread or metastasized to every single part and organ of her body, and she passed away from breast cancer 2 years after her initial diagnosis. So it is personal for me, and I'm really want you tonight to understand the risks and to help you to not have this same story that I had. And if you, like me, if it's breast cancer is personal for you in your family, I want you to understand your risks, and I want you to understand what you can do to help mitigate those risks. So about 1 in 8 women are going to be diagnosed with breast cancer in their lifetime. And as we know, breast cancer, it does not just impact women, but it also does impact men. Very less frequently than it does for women, but it still also can impact men. So 1 out of 833 men have a chance of developing breast cancer in their life. So breast cancer impacts both women and men. And when we look at some of the other statistics around breast cancer, we want to look at some of the risk factors. Well, we know age is a risk factor. So as you get older, it increases your risk of breast cancer. Family history, so about 15% of breast cancers occur in a woman who has a family history of breast cancer. But the flip side of that is about 85% of women who have breast cancer don't have any family history of breast cancer. Okay? A woman's risk of breast cancer nearly doubles if she has a first-degree relative. So like me, mom, or if you have sister or a daughter who had breast cancer, that increases your risk of developing breast cancer. And then there are things that are like obesity. If you're overweight, that increases your risk. And if you have a genetic mutation, you may say, like if you have a risk for breast cancer, your doctor may suggest that you have genetic testing. And two of the genes that they will test for are the BRCA genes 1 and 2. And that gives you an approximate 70% lifetime risk of developing cancer. There's also some other lifestyle things that increase your risk of cancer. If you've never had children, that increases your risk. If you had children but you didn't breastfeed your children, that increases your risk. The use of birth control increases your risk. Using hormone therapy during menopause, and we'll talk a little bit about that when we talk about race and breast cancer. And then having breast implants. So all of these things can increase your risk of developing cancer. Now let's talk about what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about surviving breast cancer with Dr. Rhodes again, who we're going to talk about that. But before we get there, I want to talk about, because in talking with Dr. Rhodes, we're going to talk also about some of your risk factors with race. So if you can put the slide up that has race, statistics, and cancer, that is going to talk really about, because again, this show, recognizing that this disease impacts everyone, but this disease is going to impact Black women more in a deadlier way than it does any other race. So on this show, we talk about building generational health to end the cycle of premature death in the Black community, recognizing that other races get cancers, other races have chronic diseases, but the goal of this show, when you'll see as we talk about breast cancer, we talk about COVID, we talk about so many other chronic diseases, African Americans are at the top of the list of who is dying from these different diseases. So that's why this show is specifically and purposefully talking about the impacts of breast cancer on Black folks. And most of the things that we talk about specifically is dealing with the risk factors for Black folks, okay? So let's talk about some cancer statistics and race. So Black women are more likely to die from breast cancer than any other racial group, okay? Again, that's why we talk about that on this show. That's why our impacts and our emphasis is on Black women. About 1 in 5 Black women are diagnosed with what's called a triple negative breast cancer. That means there's different hormonal receptors in your breast that they look at for breast cancer, and Black women most often have negative for those hormones, and that is important when it comes down to treatment. My mom was a triple negative. My cousin, who also has breast cancer, and has just finished treatment, was a triple negative. So 1 in 5 women are going to be triple negative. Breast cancer is the leading cause of cancer death in the United States for Black and Hispanic women. And it is the second leading cause of death for women who are Asian, Pacific Islander, Alaskan Native women. And Ashkenazi Jews, Ashkenazi, you can tell me, Dr. Rhodes, which way to say it. Women have a higher risk of breast cancer because they tend to have that BRCA mutation. And you might say to yourself, why are you talking about Ashkenazi Jews? So, well, you know, we are mixed with a lot of different things. And so I was surprised to find out that I actually am a carrier of another disease called cystic fibrosis. And there's 2 different mutations of that cystic fibrosis gene. There's one mutation that's more common in African Americans, and there's another mutation that's more common in Ashkenazi Jews. Well, I actually have the mutation that's more common in Ashkenazi Jews, which means that you, Black folks, may also have some lineage within Ashkenazi Jews that you may not even be aware of. So that's why I'm mentioning that tonight. So We need to talk about breast cancer. We need to talk about what we can do to survive breast cancer should you be diagnosed with breast cancer. And that's why I'm excited to have our guest on the show tonight. So let me introduce you. Some of you have already been introduced to Dr. Rhodes. She's been a guest on Talking with Dr. Donna before. She's a part of our Generational Health Network, and she does fantastic work both in her job at UCSF and also within the community as being the founder of Umoja Health. If you came and got your vaccine from us, that was Umoja Health. If you came and got your colon cancer screening, that was Umoja Health. So Umoja Health is doing great work in the community. So let me just tell you a little bit about Dr. Kim. She's an associate professor of epidemiology and biostatistics at UCSF. She's formal training in being a general and colorectal surgeon. I told y'all she's one of the smartest people I know. She also has additional training in basic science, healthcare disparities, and health policy research. In her current role, she's the Associate Director for Community Engagement at the UCSF Comprehensive Cancer Center. And she has a medical degree from UCSF, a Master's of Health Science degree from UC Berkeley, and a Master's of Public Health from Harvard University. Do I have to say it again? I told y'all, she's one of the smartest people I know. So I want you all to welcome Dr. Kim Rhodes to Talking with Dr. Donna, and let's get talking about tonight's episode of Surviving Cancer. Hey, Dr. Rhodes.
Hey, Dr. Donna, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being back with us tonight to talk about cancer and talk about surviving diagnosis and what can we do to help make sure that, we know mistakes happen. I didn't go down the road of suing the center that my mom was being treated in because we know mistakes happen. And after talking to the staff there, recognizing the complexity with which the diagnosis was made. So we know mistakes happen. And so it's really important, though, that we can kind of get as much information as we can so we can help to limit those mistakes. I definitely was not as knowledgeable about adult cancer and breast cancer then when my mom was diagnosed as I am today. And so I want to give everyone else that upper hand of knowledge as well, so that if they're battling cancer or a family member is battling cancer, that they have more knowledge in which they can move forward with. So that's the intro. I want to see if there's anything that you want to say first before we get into my questions.
Well, so thanks so much for having me and for hosting this discussion. I think it's there's a lot we don't know, and the more we don't, the more I would say the medical field doesn't know that translates to Black people. We get less information. So I'm really excited that you're doing this show so we can get the word out and also provide some access to some different kinds of resources where people can check on their question, right? And get answers based on what we do know. But I think that the key action that you're taking is knitting people together with experts who can provide access to that information.
Great. So I think that's a great segue into sort of what is a comprehensive cancer center and why should we care that it's a comprehensive cancer center?
Yeah, I mean, I think that gets to your point about getting more information, having had the wrong diagnosis, kind of not knowing what is the right thing to do. I want people to really think about taking the opportunity to get, for example, a second opinion, right? I know that there's a sense of urgency when you have a diagnosis of cancer, but I think people need to step back, take a breath, because as you pointed out, if you have the wrong diagnosis, you may go down a treatment path that's not going to be as effective as it would be if you had the right diagnosis. That's kind of true for everything. So, once the diagnosis comes, there still is time to reach out for a second opinion. And I really would encourage people not to feel like they shouldn't get a second opinion or that they're going to offend their doctors. because the reality is it's your life. And so you need to do the best you can in terms of getting the best information. Comprehensive cancer centers are centers that the National Cancer Institute, so that's part of the NIH, which is our federal funding, that's your tax dollars at work, deem these centers to have the right components to be what's called comprehensive. And those components include having the right research in all aspects of cancer, from looking at cells to studying how drugs work in people. Those centers also have care for all different types of cancers, and that care is coordinated. So if you need a surgeon and you need an oncologist and you need radiation, they're all there in the same place. All NCI comprehensive cancer centers have all of that. In addition to that, there's a requirement by the National Cancer Institute to make sure that the cancer center is engaging with the community that it claims in what's called its catchment area, which is usually where most of the patients come to that center from. At UCSF, we have a 25 county catchment area. It includes Alameda County. It is our closest sister county. It's where we do, I would say, the majority of our work. And then it also has to have diversity, equity, and inclusion as a focus. And it also has to have education of the trainees and of young people who are interested in careers and pathways in cancer research and cancer care delivery. So all of those things have to come together in order to be comprehensive. And what that means is you're really getting everybody looking at, in terms of treatment, everybody looking at the tumor from multiple different directions. So you're getting all of these inputs that then get coordinated into what is the correct pathway in terms of treatment.
Awesome. And so when you're talking about the Comprehensive Cancer Center, I have a slide here about what makes it comprehensive, and you've touched on that, right? Is that it has multiple specialists within that cancer center. So where are there comprehensive cancer centers located here in the Bay Area?
Yeah, sure. So around the country, there are 72 comprehensive cancer centers across 37 states. So every state doesn't have a comprehensive cancer center. I think that's a really important key point for us to think about as a country. California, it has the most cancer centers per population. We have 8 of them. I think we have 3 in Northern California that are shown there on the map. That's UC San Francisco, where I work, UC Davis, and Stanford. And then Southern California has the other 5. So some are private, some are public, but really they're all attached to a university, with the exception of City of Hope, which is not attached to a university because all they see are patients who have cancer. They don't take care of any other kinds of diseases there.
And I know that there are some other places here in the Bay Area that provide cancer treatment, but they may not be a comprehensive cancer center. Can you talk about the difference between, say, a UCSF and, say, Alta Bates?
Sure. So some of the community hospitals that are not associated closely with an academic university are called comprehensive, or you may see a sign outside that says Comprehensive Cancer Center. And that's because they're part of what's called the Commission on Cancer. And that is led by the American College of Surgeons. And what they're looking for is to accredit certain hospitals that are not necessarily academically affiliated, to make sure that the care that they're providing is patient-centered, that they have follow-up and survivorship programs, and most importantly, that they're actually doing quality improvement. So they're tracking how well they're treating cancer and making changes on the basis of that. In order to become COC, or Commission on Cancer accredited, you have to have a site visit. So a group of people come out and they check out how you're delivering cancer care, and they make the decision whether or not you can participate. But the other commitment that has to be made is that you're going to collect the data and you're going to share the data nationally. And so Commission on Cancer hospitals also have to make an investment in someone to collect that data on an ongoing basis and to be in contact with the American College of Surgeons around quality improvement. So those centers also have a comprehensive selection of treatment. They may not have clinical trials, for example, but that's the closest you're going to get when you're out in community.
Great. All right. So if this is your first time on Talking with Dr. Donna, you may not know that we're live and that we ask questions. So our first question is going to be to you all out there, the audience, because I want you to Dr. Kim's going to come back and answer the question, but I want to see what you all thought with the answer of this question. So if you can see the question, and the question is, so Dr. Rhodes talked about the Comprehensive Cancer Center, and we want to ask you, do you think that you need a specific type of insurance to receive care at a comprehensive cancer center? We're going to give you just a few seconds here to answer that question. Go ahead and put it in the chat, in the comments, and say, do I need a specific, excuse me, type of insurance in order to be seen at a comprehensive cancer center? So we're going to wait just for a second, Dr. Kim, and see if anyone wants to answer yes or no on whether or not you think you need a specific type of insurance. I don't have any Jeopardy music, but I should for this. It's in my mind. All right. All right. So what is the answer, Dr. Kim?
The answer is, it depends. Unfortunately, with our fragmented healthcare system, it really depends on which university hospital that cancer center is affiliated with. For the public hospitals, which include the University of California hospitals, so that's San Diego, Irvine, Los Angeles, Davis, and UCSF, we're 5 out of the 8. It's a public hospital, so you can come with any insurance, but typically you do have to have something. So even Medi-Cal, we already accept patients who have Medi-Cal as their insurance. And of course, Medicare is accepted everywhere. If you have Kaiser, there is a little bit of kind of jostling that has to go on, and a determination of whether or not you can get your cancer care at a comprehensive cancer center if you have Kaiser insurance. And part of that is because Kaiser is its own insurer, and they would prefer to take care of their enrolled patients in their system. But if there are things that are offered at the Comprehensive Cancer Center that are not available at Kaiser, then there are opportunities for Kaiser patients to actually be seen inside of, for example, our center. And in fact, I was recently made aware we do have, there is a breast cancer clinical trial that is ongoing at UCSF right now, where as a Kaiser patient, you might have your surgery at Kaiser, but then you would get your chemotherapy and the rest of the treatment at UCSF as part of the trial. So there are ways to get to a comprehensive cancer center. I'm not disparaging any other particular hospital, but I would really recommend, especially for Black people, if we want to get the best care and have the best opportunity for the best outcome, I would really recommend checking in with the Comprehensive Cancer Center, trying to get a second opinion. If the second opinion matches your first opinion outside of the Comprehensive Cancer Center, it's fine to proceed, and you can feel comfortable about that. But we really are here, and we have committed to the National Cancer Institute that we will stand as kind of the final stop and the experts in terms of the cutting edge care, the clinical trials, and the coordination of care, and quite frankly, and it's been studied, the best outcomes for most cancers.
So I want to talk a little bit about that. Why do comprehensive cancer centers have better outcome? Is it that they have smarter doctors, they have better treatment? What is it that makes the survival rate better going to a comprehensive cancer center?
Yeah, I don't know that it's smarter doctors. I mean, when we're talking about population level outcomes, right? We say, well, the population of Black people tend to have outcomes that are not as good. We're talking about a system level problem. That's not about individuals doing a bad job. That's a system level problem. And so so you may have a doctor who's not Einstein working at a comprehensive cancer center, but what they're surrounded by is a system of cancer care. of experts and individuals in other facets of delivering the care that allows for them to pull off the shelf, exactly what we need for the type of cancer that we're looking at directly. And we've got, as I mentioned before, a lot of eyes looking at it. And so the blind spots that one doctor working alone may have get filled by the fact that it's being looked at by multiple other folks who are really got their thinking cap on and trying to solve some problems. So it's more about the system than it is about the individual providers. And I think you just had the slide up there that was about hospital and healthcare quality. And I think that really gets at what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, thank you. And so looking at that, looks like there's just lots of different roles in that impact cancer survival, right? There's the structure, there's the process and the people, and then the commitment to outcomes of quality. There's also a study that you did in a talk. I want to show that because I want you to kind of walk through this one. This was the one about improvement in cancer survival with prostate cancer.
Oh, yes.
Can you talk about that and
Sure.
Also a little bit about clinical trials?
Yeah, absolutely. So what the slide, I just want to make reference to the slide that you were showing before, because I think it's kind of important to understand what's happening here. And I'm not going to talk through the hospital version. I'm going to talk through you're at your friend's house trying to get a sandwich and you're trying to be satisfied in terms of your hunger.
Yes.
Structural quality refers to when you go to the fridge, what do they have at their house for you to make a sandwich? Because if they've only got peanut butter and jelly and Weber bread, you're having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? That's structural quality. The difference at your other friend's house where they've got a whole range of cold cuts, different kinds of cheeses, 5 different types of bread, you're going to be able to make a different sandwich and you're going to be more satisfied. So the structural quality is what you have at your disposal to make a great sandwich and satisfy your hunger. The process quality is what you can make out of those resources. So if the hospital is under resourced, you may not have access to all of the different things that you need to get the best care. And that's going to have an impact on your outcome. In the sandwich scenario, it's going to have an impact on how satisfied you are with what you've just eaten. And part of why that matters is certain places where people go to get cancer care do not offer clinical trials. And we might say, well, who wants to be a guinea pig anyway? But really what we're now understanding about cancer clinical trials is that sometimes the outcomes are dramatically better, and in particular for Black people. So that structural quality, one of those elements is, do they have clinical trials? Because if they do, then you could get offered one. And that can have an impact on outcome. The slide you're showing right here is comparing men, African-American men, to all other non-African-American men. And the two groups are those who participated in a clinical trial through RTOG, which is the radiation treatment outcomes collaborative, and compared to just I got cancer treatment any old place. And this is national data, so it's looking across the country at Black versus white men on the right-hand side. So on the left, what you're looking at is if you're in an RTOG clinical trial, how long is your survival without disease? I believe this is disease-free survival. So the line at the top, so the higher the line, the better the outcome. And what you can see is that the blue line on the left is higher than the dotted orange line. And that is a comparison between the solid blue line is men on trial, and the dashed orange line is men who are not on trial, and that's mixed. It's not by race. When we go to the right-hand side of the screen, what we're showing you is in the blue line, we're showing you Black men who were on the RTOG trial. Now, I just want to stop for a second and point out that what I said was the higher the line, the better. The highest line on this graph is Black men on a clinical trial. And in fact, it may be hard to see. I don't know how well people can see the slide, but that dashed line in orange is white. I believe it's Black men not on a clinical trial. So the top line is Black men on a clinical trial. The next line down is Black men who are not on a clinical trial. And then you see that yellow line interrupting everything. That yellow line is non-Black person on a clinical trial. And that's compared to the purple line below it, which is non-Black men general cancer treatment. So what you can see is when you compare between being on a trial and not being on a trial, the men who are on the trial do better. And when you look at Black men on the trial, they do better than white men not on trial. So I'm going to say it again. Black men having better outcomes in cancer than white men. And the key was participating in a clinical trial.
Can you talk a little bit about clinical trial and why they would make such a difference? Is it the drugs that they're on? What is it that about clinical trials? Because like you said, so many of us, especially in the Black community, are very nervous about clinical trials. And we always feel like, oh, well, yeah, we're guinea pigs. This is medicine that's never been studied. They're going to give it to me. Or if I don't get it, then I'm not going to get any treatment, and it's going to be bad for me. So talk a little bit about the benefits of a clinical trial that we can see from this particular study, but for others who may be offered a clinical trial and be nervous about enrolling.
Sure. Yeah. I think one of the good things that I, being in the cancer field, that I can say is we can't give you a sugar pill. There are no cancer clinical trials. If there is a known treatment for that cancer, you cannot be given a sugar pill as part of a clinical trial. So that's very important to understand, because it's the foundation, I believe, of why Black people do better on trial than off trial. And the reason is because if you're on a trial, that means that at the end of the trial, the data is going to be analyzed. And when we analyze the data, we want to make sure that we're analyzing it in a way that says, like, we know what each person received, because we're trying to compare, is one thing better than another in terms of treatment. So what happens if you are on a trial and you don't know if you're getting the advanced, the innovative drug or the standard of care, but you're always getting standard of care? The scientists running the trial do not want you to deviate from the protocol. They need you to stay exactly on the protocol that you were assigned to. Because if you fall off of the protocol and your outcome is worse, when they go to do the data analysis, they have to do the analysis as if you got the treatment. And that will make their data worse. So even though the motivation is not really about us as people, the agenda that the researcher wants, really good data, means that you're going to get good care. So whether it's standard of care or it's the experimental drug, really what someone is going to be making sure, and that usually is the clinical research coordinator, they're going to be making sure that you make it to your appointments, that you get some support if you can't, that you get a phone call. So what you're actually getting is guaranteed standard of care if you join a cancer clinical trial where there is a known standard treatment. And I believe that's why Black patients do better on clinical trials than off, because somebody's actually paying attention to whether or not you get everything you're supposed to get for the diagnosis and cancer that you have.
Doesn't matter the motivation as long as it happens, right?
Yeah, we want the outcome. I mean, if we have to subvert the system in order to get it, then that's what we have to do. But understanding that whose agenda is really at play here, and it really is the investigator wanting high quality data, means that you're going to get everything that you're supposed to get.
Yeah, great. Well, I like that you said in the very beginning about taking a pause, taking a deep breath, and getting that second opinion. How do you look for that second opinion? What are some of the things that people should kind of look for?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I love about Umoja, being a coalition, is that it's a network full of people with lots of expertise and connections. And we know that the folks, the demographics who are in positions of power and who control kind of what our world looks like, they do it through networking. They do it through favors and friendships and relationships. So what I love about Umoja is you are anywhere within Umoja, you're 6 degrees of separation from a pediatrician. That's you. From someone like myself who's just kind of flitting around and trying to be in everybody's business and make as many connections as possible. And a Dr. Noha, who is just a fierce, advocate in primary care. So what I would recommend is that you dip into the network. They're like, I need a second opinion on whatever it is, right? So that network reaches to us to figure out how we're going to get you to a second opinion. I just recently discovered a group called the secondopinion.org. They do absolutely free second opinions. They are 100% came into being because of the of disparities and because of understanding that everybody doesn't necessarily get access to the best information the first time around. And so they do provide a comprehensive, they do a tumor board. They have volunteer doctors who are willing to look through all of the materials and not charge the patient, which is important. Sometimes the second opinion costs money because the pathology, it's usually the pathology, which means after the biopsy, what gets looked at under the microscope gets made into slides. Those slides get shared to the second opinion, and usually the pathologist wants to charge for the service of looking at those slides again. So the secondopinion.org does all of this work for free. So I would check out their website. That's one place. If you're watching from across the country, obviously, if you're here in the Bay Area, you want to dip into the Emoja Health Network, where we can connect you to, pretty much any of the comprehensive cancer centers in our Northern California region.
Wow, great. That's awesome. Again, knowledge is power. If I wish I'd had this type of information when I was going through this cancer journey with my mom, having a second opinion, recognizing who you can kind of tap into and talk to is so important. And that's why it's so great being a part of the Generational Health Network. It's a network.
That's right.
Emoja Health, it's a networking. I want to just take a step back and just ask about some screening recommendations.
Sure.
Because I know that we hear a lot about when you should screen and when you should stop screening, what type of screening should we get, how often. Can you just talk a little bit about what are the latest recommendations for breast cancer screening?
Sure. I believe it was in June that the U.S. Preventive Health Task Force they've been bouncing around. So when I turned 35, I started getting screened on the recommendation of my OB-GYN. However, I think she might have been a little trigger happy. But at the time, the recommendation was 50 and that women under 50 should not be screened. I think she felt, because she understands that Black women get breast cancer earlier, that she started me earlier. Mm-hmm. The current recommendation is to start screening at age 40. This is for average risk women, where you mentioned already, if you have a family history in a first degree relative, you probably should have a conversation with your primary care doctor about when you should screen. But screening now recommended to start at age 40 and to stop at age 74. The screening modality is still recommended as mammogram once a year. There's a lot of nuance to it, and I want to just right now I put in a plug for the Wisdom Study, and I believe that's at the wisdomstudy.org. And the reason I'm raising this is because what they're trying to do is figure out the right screening pattern for every woman. And the reason this comes up is because you had mentioned triple negative breast cancer in Black women. I want to just point out that triple negative breast cancer can arise in between mammograms, even if you're getting them once a year. I'm going to say that again.
Yeah, so please do. Say that again.
You get your mammogram and it's negative and normal. And then the next year you go back right on time, as recommended, to get your mammogram. And now you've got a breast tumor. That happens in triple negative breast cancer. And in particular, it can happen in younger women. When younger women get diagnosed, those tumors tend to grow much faster. So what the Wisdom Study is trying to do is figure out who needs a different kind of screening, like an MRI, right? Where you might detect that tumor that was already growing, was not picked up on the mammogram, and then suddenly, boom, a year later is big and is something you can feel. And they're doing that by, you can actually join the study online. I recently joined the study. And again, it's one of those little tricks about clinical trials. What they do for you is once you join the study, every year they send you a letter. And based on your age, your family history, your history of having babies or not having babies, of breastfeeding or not, they send you a letter letting you know your risk of getting breast cancer is now 10% or 8% or 7%. You get that letter every year. And you can join an extended arm of the study where you give a saliva sample and they run a genetic screening panel and then use that information in combination with your age, your race, your date of birth, your family history, and all those other questions you answered online and tell you what your risk is and tell you how you should be screened. So based on your risk, they will tell you, you should get an ultrasound, you should get a mammogram, you should have an MRI. And that also takes into account whether or not you've had a report that the breast tissue was dense, because I know that's a lot of women are getting this a report of dense breast tissue on mammogram. The problem with dense breast tissue is it makes it a little bit difficult on mammogram to see the tumors. So what you would want is to know what is the perfect screening modality for me. So they're trying to get 100,000 women into the study. They've got, I think we're at 45,000. I'm actually part of the study team. They have 45,000 women or so in the study currently. And again, it's of no cost to you. So you get this letter and you can take it to your primary care provider and say, based on my risk, here's what I know. Now, I just want to I want to emphasize why this is important. And that is because for white women, we have what's called a polygenic risk score. So if I were to go to the same doctor as, say, a white neighbor, we go to the same doctor, they send off a genetic test using my saliva. They'll get any mutations in different genes will come back. I'll get the results. The white woman my neighbor's going to get a paper with her results, and on the back it'll say, here's your risk. And that's based on the polygenic risk score. The Black woman, that's me, I'm going to get a letter back that says, here are the different mutations, and on the back of the page is going to be blank. And the reason it's going to be blank is because there is no polygenic risk score for Black women. So this is an opportunity for us to find out what the tailored recommendation is, because as you said, we're the ones getting the really aggressive tumors. And so in order to get the best outcome, you need screening and early detection. And if you don't have the right kind of screening, one size does not fit all, you may miss that tumor that's going to come up in between your two mammograms. So I really recommend that people check it out. You can join the study right now from your computer while you're listening in. But the goal then is not to tell everybody, okay, 40 to 74, right? Because now there are papers that have just been published showing that Black women are more likely to get a breast tumor in their 40s than in their 50s, whereas the distribution for Black women for white women is after 50. So there are differences in how we're presenting. We need different screening approaches to make sure that our cancers get detected early.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell on myself. So about a year ago, I started the enrollment with the Wisdom Study, and I stopped the enrollment because for me, it is very stressful to the thought. I used to do a mammogram every 6 months and then an MRI every 6 months because of my risk. And I would be so stressed out at those 6-month appointments because of my significant family history of breast cancer. I'd be so stressed getting those results that I felt like I can't do this to myself every 6 months. And that's kind of when you said that I'm going to get that letter every year. That's kind of how I feel like, oh my gosh, the anxiety around getting that letter. But as you're talking, I'm telling myself, like I would tell someone else if they were telling me this story. Like, so what you're saying is that you would rather not know? You're saying you want to bury your head in the sand, Dr. Donna? That's not right. So thank you, Dr. Kim, because you're going to encourage me to complete my enrollment in the Wisdom Study.
Well, and I do want to add that they've changed their interface, because I started to enroll a long time, like before the pandemic, and then the pandemic, and you're running and
Right.
just whatever. But they actually changed the interface, so it was much easier. It was very easy. I think I enrolled in maybe it took me 20 minutes, maybe half an hour. And then I said, I do want to do the saliva kit. So I got my saliva kit. That's another, hurdle to get over in terms of giving up your saliva. But they do have an agreement with Color Genomics that they cannot use your sample for anything else without coming back to you for consent. And then the other thing is they're now starting to look at and enroll women who are 30 to 39. And again, I just want to applaud the investigators, because I know them personally. The lead investigator was my mentor, and I know that she actually cares to solve this problem and is tired of seeing the same disparities that we're seeing. So I love that they're now opening it up to 30 to 39-year-olds. And then what we encourage them to do, I lead their community, the development of their community advisory and kind of thinking around these issues. And I loved bringing in our community advisory board and having one of them say, you need to do this like a Moja. So now every month there's actually the Wisdom Breast Cancer Forum, and they talk about regular issues like lumpy breasts and how should I screen, and what are the new kinds of treatments that are out there, and any new papers that come out that are controversial. And so it's just an opportunity to get some information and to get to interface with some folks who lend their expertise for that hour, open to the community, to have a kind of discussion and gather the true wisdom that they're really trying to generate here, because that wisdom, a lot of that wisdom really actually just comes from the community and hearing stories. And that's what they're committed to, learning from every woman, not just learning from specific women with specific problems, but trying to understand, the full gamut of what's out there.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm so happy that you made the point that, people are nervous about giving up their DNA. Obviously, we have a history of, getting Black women's cells using for things they didn't consent to. We have a whole line of HeLa cells, right, from Henrietta Lacks and so many other stories. So thank you for pointing out that nothing is going to happen with your saliva without your consent. That is important. So there's some questions in the chat that I want to get to. I think you kind of touched on this, that if you have a mammogram result that says you have dense breasts, is there something else that they should be asking their doc for in terms of their screening for their breasts? I don't know if you want to say more about that, or you kind of answered it with either ultrasound or another modality.
Yeah, and I would just say, and press for, what it means, and ask the question very directly. Does this change the way I should screen? Because, for your information, the reason that it is required by law to be printed there is because of the fact that it does obscure, it does hide and make more difficult the ability to see small abnormalities. And so now the radiologist who's reading it out is required to note you have dense breasts. So we're telling you it looks negative, but we're also telling you have dense breasts. And so you need to be conscientious and really have a conversation about what that means for your screening future.
Yeah, my mammogram result this month, they always come back dense breast, which is why I was alternating the mammogram with an MRI. But I hadn't had an MRI in about a year. And so my mammogram result came back again. It's negative, but you have dense breast, so we can't maybe not see small. Right. And so I just sent an email to my doc this morning saying, all right, so schedule my MRI. All right, I'm back.
and you know what, Dr. Donna, you said we're here trying to create generational health. And part of that is this whole community that's on here supporting you and lifting you up. Yeah. So if something were to happen, we're here for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's see. There's a question. Does it matter how long a woman has breastfed for in terms of decreasing risk of breast cancer? I know that's a risk factor, not breastfeeding. I don't know if you know much about the timing that how long you have to breastfeed for that to help in terms of decreasing your risk of developing breast cancer?
Yeah, I don't think there are any studies that give a time cutoff, but what's happening there is just reducing the exposure to estrogen, right? So as long as you're not in your menstrual cycle, you're warding off the stimulation of the risk of developing breast cancer. So it really is more about, and I think we believe that breastfeeding wards off the next pregnancy because you're not cycling.
Right.
Some of us have found out that's not true, but but the point is, it's just that the length of time that your breast tissue is not exposed to estrogen. That's why we ask about. It's better if you didn't get your menstrual cycle until you were a little bit older. It's better if you have your babies when you're younger. Because when you're not having your babies, those are more years that your breasts are continuously being exposed to hormones. So breastfeeding longer theoretically should have some impact, but we don't have any studies to tell you exactly how long.
Okay. This is back to the comprehensive centers. Do you find that they will embrace complementary treatments to standard cancer treatments? How open do you think they would be, or you would be, as this is your center, to complementary treatment in addition to the standard of care?
Yeah, I can't speak for all of them. I do know at UCSF we have what's called the Osher Center, OSHER, and they are a complementary medicine center within our center. So that's for everybody, not just for cancer. But they have done some studies inside of our hospital trying to control pain with acupuncture. They have created some group clinics with some, education around diet and exercise and things like that. So we are at UCSF very much open to that as a complementary, something to some of the more traditional treatments. But I can't speak for, I was on the faculty at Stanford. I do believe there's complementary medicine. It's not as organized as the Osher Center. And then UC Davis, I'm not sure. But yes, for metastatic breast cancer, if there are no clinical trials, and really the goal is comfort and quality of life, yes, absolutely. There is an openness to that. And in fact, I think having that committed center really attests to not only do we believe in it and say, okay, yeah, you can just do it, but we can make recommendations for you as well.
Great. All right. And then the last question, are clinical trials free or do you have to pay for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. They are not free. If there are parts of the clinical trial that include the standard of care, those parts are covered just like your typical standard of care. Some trials will have you come in and get a blood draw, more frequently than you might get a blood draw if you are just on regular chemotherapy. And some of those outside costs can be requested of the patient. But what I would recommend is that when you're in that circumstance, because especially at a comprehensive cancer center, we are trying our hardest to make sure that people are not excluded on the basis of the inability to pay for the trial itself, right? We don't want to put that additional burden. So some of the pharmaceutical companies, as well as sometimes there are programs in the university, they'll pay for those additional costs for people to be on trials, but you have to ask for it. They're not going to run out and say, hey, let me give you this additional money. You have to ask. And there is a value, there is a premium on diversification of our trials, because as I said, Black women don't have a polygenic risk score. I mean, that just blows my mind. And so there is a commitment, especially inside of the cancer centers. Our clinical trials are supposed to have the same representation as the 25 county catchment area that we claim. So all of our trials are supposed to include, for African American people, those 25 counties, it's about 7% of the population is African American. We're supposed to match that. And we take that goal very seriously. And we've created a number of different working groups that include our community partners and community advisors to advise on which trials make the most sense. Like if we're going to open a trial that nobody's going to be able to accomplish, coming for an infusion 5 days a week, for example, then our community partners are going to speak up to say that's a trial that you're not going to get anybody to sign up for, let alone have it be diverse.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Rose. This was such a great show, great information, and you helped me in addition to, I'm sure, everyone else who's watching. So I'm going to give you final words, anything that you'd like to say as you close.
Gosh, all kinds of things. So again, thank you for this forum. I keep thinking about Baba Arnold Perkins, the former director of the Alameda County Public Health Department, who always says no one should go through a cancer journey alone. I know we like to keep secrets, but I also just want to remind everybody that this network is here for you. And I especially know in the faith community, there's a really strong bed of support. And so we should continue forward to try to achieve our best health by not shouldering the burden of the fear of what if I have cancer. The answer to what if I have cancer is we got your back.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Dr. Rose. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate you being a part of the Generational Health Network. I appreciate all the work that you do in the community and at UCSF. And I thank you for just being my friend. So thank you. Have a good night.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, so we're going to skip to food of the month because I know we had a lot of information and we gave a lot tonight. So I'm just going to make sure that we talk about our food of the month. I hope that if you missed any part of what Dr. Rhodes said, that you wait for this to post on YouTube and go back and listen to it. Take notes, write it down because you got some nuggets tonight. So our food of the month, as you know, the Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we've been doing pink foods all month. And so this week, we're going to highlight pomegranates. That is our food of this week, our pomegranate fruit. We had Carey oranges, we've done beets, now we're at pomegranates. So some of the health benefits of pomegranates, they are anti-inflammatory. Most of these foods that are colorful are anti-inflammatory. That means that it's going to decrease your risk of cancer, decrease your risk of heart disease, decrease your risk of diabetes, all of those things. They do urinary health support, elevate your endurance, help you to fight off different bacteria, help to improve your memory, and help with your gut. So pomegranates. If you have a choice between eating the pomegranate and drinking the pomegranate, like in pomegranate juice, I'm going to encourage you to eat the fruit. Less calories, less sugar, eat the fruit. But if you're going to drink pomegranate juice, try not to do the kind that has a whole lot of sugar in it because you're counterbalancing the benefits of pomegranates by drinking sugar-laden pomegranate juice. So hopefully you get some pomegranates in your diet this week. All right, once again, thank you for keeping your appointment with Dr. Donna. So many different ways in which you can connect with me on Facebook, on Instagram. I want to remind you that we have a challenge going on. Last week's episode, we talked about, are you ready? Do you have an emergency kit prepared? Unfortunately, last week we had an earthquake that just kind of drove home the point of the importance of having an emergency kit. So our challenge is creating and building your emergency kit. I want you to build it, take a picture, post it on my Facebook or Instagram page. Everybody who posts a picture of your ready, prepared emergency kit, we're going to enter you into a raffle for a great prize. So take your pictures, post it, get your kits ready. All right. Again, if you are not a subscriber to my YouTube channel, that's my only other ask is 1, subscribe to the YouTube channel, 2, share the information that you learned tonight with your networks. All right. Thank you for keeping your appointment. You have an appointment every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. with the doctor. Until next week, take good care of yourself. Make sure you're getting those screening mammograms. Make sure if you're dense breast like Dr. Donna, you're going to go do that extra test. And if you're interested in joining the Wisdom Study, go to our YouTube channel and get the link on how to join the Wisdom Study. Thank you so much for keeping your appointment. God bless you. Take good care of yourself and your families. On Talking with Dr. Donna, we focus on 4 pillars of health to help build a generational health network. to end the cycle of premature death in the Black community. I created Talking with Dr. Donna as a way to educate as many people as possible and give accurate information from a trusted physician. Go to Talking with Dr. Donna and get accurate information. And then share that information with your family and friends. And if you like what you see, like my channel and subscribe. Remember, every Thursday, keep your appointment